This is Warren's Most Liked segment, in which you can share how you got started with Android, the problems you had along the way, and much more. If you don't know what to say, we'll help you along the way.
Let's move on to our next segment, and it's my favorite. We're talking about the Android journey story. And Jerry, you want to take us down that memory lane, telling us when you got started with your Android journey, all those bumps in the road and all of that. And welcome to Android journey story. Jerry, it's your turn to tell the world about your Android journey story.
So I started in May of 2011. Such a long time ago.
It's a long time.
I was with Sprint, and my first phone, if any of you even saw it, was the Sanyo Zayo. Does anyone remember that one at all?
I never had that. Sounds like a Sony Vaio there to me.
It was a touchscreen phone, but it did have a trackball, and it was, like I said, my first journey into Android. You had to install TalkBack. You had to install Pico or Pico. I always called it Pico, but that's just me. And unfortunately, so therefore, we had to have the store do it. And unfortunately, the agent that we had wasn't as knowledgeable as they should have been, shall we say. We had taken the phone home and we had to take it right back to the store because it did not have what the agent said it would. And I went looking for Android, different things, like Android podcasts that would, do from a newbie's point of view, someone who just got an Android from the first time, who's blind, how would they do what they need to do? What can they expect and things like that? And that's what actually started me, because I didn't find much. Maybe I just wasn't looking in the right place. I don't know, but that's actually what started me doing the Android from a newbie, from a blind person's point of view. I actually started doing the podcast just a few days after I got my phone, and I would, do apps, or I would do, different things. And each time I got a new phone, I would do a little bit about it. The funny thing about that is later on, like a few years later, believe it or not, nobody knows this until now. My Android podcast actually got me my, if anyone remembers Odin Mobile, I actually got an email from Robert, who was my supervisor when I worked with them, but I had gotten an email from him. He had heard about my podcast. He actually listened to it. That podcast is actually what got me, my job working for Odin Mobile for, Lord, what was that? November of 2013 all the way until, I want to say, March of 2016. So yeah. And when they went down, Robert told me, he said, I'm working on trying to start my own company, and if I get it off the ground, I want you to work for me, because he had to let me go. And RAZ Mobility came around, and I heard from him, and there you go. So my podcast actually got me my job, working for Odin Mobile, doing basically the same thing I do for RAZ Mobility. Doing tutorials, doing training, helping people who are, totally blind, answering questions when I can. If one of our other agents can't answer something, say it's on an Android phone and it's regarding TalkBack, they send it over to me and I help. So you never know. Sometimes the little things you do, like I said, I started the podcast because I didn't find one from a newbie's point of view, for a blind person. So I just started doing it. And like I said, about 2 years later, it got me a job.
How did you find TalkBack in those early days?
You had you had to have someone sighted, and back then, I mean, it wasn't called the Play Store back then. What was it? Market something or
Android market.
Marketplace,
Android
wasn't
Market,
it?
Android Market, I think,
Yeah.
or something like
Yeah.
that. Marketplace, maybe.
Yeah.
But you could find it there, but you had to have someone sighted do it for you.
But how did you, that was, I know, I remember that, and it was really annoying. But how did you find using it
Back
as an
then,
experience?
I mean, it was definitely different compared to what
Yes.
it is now.
Thank
It was
goodness it's different now.
Oh yeah. And I even used mobile accessibility. Sprint actually had a deal where you could get it for free through them. Now, unfortunately, I bought it, and then shortly after I bought it, they offered it for free. And I'm like,
That is so annoying.
especially when it cost $100.
But
Yeah, I hear you.
Yeah. What about
That was something.
the angle
But I will say-
gestures and all that stuff? How did you
I
get on with
still
those?
I still to this day don't like angle gestures.
Nor do I.
I mean, I can do them, but they just I don't like them. I know early in the earlier back when they started doing those gestures, they were more picky than they are now.
Yes, they were.
I
They
mean,
were really annoying.
if you had any curve at all, forget it. It didn't work.
John likes them. John's a fan, aren't
Yeah,
you?
but
you like angle
here's
gestures.
the good thing about the gestures
Yeah.
now is that they're very forgiving, and you can literally draw a letter C. I mean, print C, and it will translate that as your talk to bring the talkback menu. So the gestures, to be honest, I think I find them to be easier one compared to the other side of the thing. I'm talking about our friends on the other side. I have students that could never do that rotor no matter what, but they could do those angle gestures. So go figure.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I still remember when we got ice cream sandwich, and we thought it was a big deal that we could actually use the touch screen finally.
Ah, that was good.
I'll tell you though, one of my horror stories was when ice cream sandwich came out, I wanted a phone. I just had to have it. I had to have it in my life. So I got a hold of my carrier and whatnot, and they're like, "Oh yes, this phone will have this, the ice cream sandwich." So I ordered the phone, and I'm excited. I'm yes. I'm going to get ice cream. No, the phone actually came with gingerbread. You had to do the update to ice cream sandwich.
Oh, well, that's annoying.
Yeah. Yeah. That was my
also
Moto Max as well.
It probably meant as well that you wouldn't get as many updates afterwards, didn't it?
I didn't keep that phone around for long enough to find out. But
what was that phone?
It was the what was it? Was it the Nexus, or what do they call it? The Nexus S or something like that?
Yeah, there was the Nexus S.
Yeah,
That's from Samsung.
No, it might have been, but it was, I think Sprint was the only one that had it, I think, at the time. But yeah, I got it. And like I said, I was all excited, but then I had to run and find eyeballs because, as I mean, we couldn't use the touch screen on the phone. So I had to get someone who could so that they could do the update for me. Does anyone remember the Transform Ultra?
What?
Transform Ultra.
I think that was a Sprint only kind of phone.
Sprint and then Boost Mobile carried it too. But I actually liked it. I mean, it had a little slide out keyboard. That was as long as, the buttons were kind of small, but it was nice to be able to have that, the slide out keyboard. And I wondered where those went because that was nice.
I miss those. Do you miss those?
Yes. That's one of the reasons. That's one of the reasons why I like the Capsys phone, the Smart Vision 3, because okay, yes, you have to do T9 typing on it, but it's still a keyboard. And there are days where my carpal tunnel is acting up. And so therefore, sometimes the gestures are harder for me to do or whatever. And that's when I like having a keyboard that I can, type with or just do simple stuff, using the up and down arrow keys and the select key. Funny enough, there was actually a problem with the camera, and I kept contacting Samsung about it, and they kept saying, no, there's nothing wrong. And I kept telling them, yes, there is, because what it would do, and it was random, but it would crash after recording like 2 minutes of video. And the only way you could bring the camera back was to reset the phone.
What?
What was
Oh,
funny?
no.
What was funny? They came out with a software update a few months later, and guess what was fixed?
The camera.
Yep.
Bingo.
And which phone was that? The camera was.
Transform Ultra. Transform
Yeah.
Ultra. So then I went to the Nexus S, the one on Sprint, that I was saying for ice cream sandwich.
Yeah.
Then I went to, I want to say it was the Nexus Verizon, because I switched to Verizon, and it was like the first Nexus that came out for that. And then I went to the Droid 4. Anyone remember that one? Again, a slide out
Droid.
keyboard.
Yeah.
Who made that?
Verizon really worked hard in, bringing Android to the foreground.
Well, not only that, the Nexus phone, the first Nexus that Verizon had, really, I mean, you don't realize how popular it was back, when it came out. One of the things I liked about that Nexus phone, though, was rooting it and installing CyanogenMod, and those were the days. And I think I did a couple podcasts about doing that, installing the latest and greatest, Cyanogen mods, like the nightly builds. And I was brave. I'm not even talking like the weekly or monthlies. I was doing the nightly builds, my friend. Root your phone, unlock your phone, and install CyanogenMod. And I mean, yes, there were things that broke, and you expected it because it was a nightly build. But
Yeah.
some of the
Yeah.
really neat things, especially if you lived in an area where your carrier wasn't the greatest signal, your battery life really stunk. And with CyanogenMod, you could slow down the processor a little bit. You could do these little tweaks where you could make your battery actually last longer. One of the phones I had, and I cannot remember which one it was, it may have been the Nexus, but I don't fully remember. Third-party batteries that were twice the size and twice the milliamp hours. I had a 3,500 milliamp battery. It was so big, because it was twice the thickness. So it came with a back that you could put on your phone, because obviously the original back wouldn't fit. So they gave you a back that poofed out, and you put your thicker battery in, and you put this thicker, case on the back, so I miss being able to change batteries like that.
So do I.
I wish they'd go back to it. Just
So do I.
Yeah. So move us through some of your other phones and to where you currently are now.
Let's see. So I did go to the Samsung 4, but not for very long. I then went
What?
to the.
Did you not like it? Was there something you didn't like about it, or just wasn't your thing? Or?
I was having issues with some of the gestures on like the home button when you were supposed to be able to do certain things with it, and I couldn't get it to work. So I
Fair enough.
gave it to a friend of mine, and then I went and got the Samsung 5. I didn't keep it very long. What I didn't like about it was they had the that's when they started doing the what did they call it? The trip counter. And I didn't like it because what they did, they locked you out of your SD card for the most part. Like the maps for Nearby Explorer, I like putting them on my SD card because SD cards were bigger, had more storage. But because they had it locked out, you couldn't put it on your SD card. So to put it on your SD card, you had to root the device and whatnot. And they had a trip counter that if you rooted the device and unlocked it, this yellow triangle would show up. Even if you tried to put everything back to stock, you tripped the counter. So therefore this yellow triangle would show up, and they would know, well, someone got smart and made a little program that you could run it and it would basically reset the trip counter. And I know it worked because I took that phone back to T-Mobile and used it as an exchange for an iPhone. I switched, I admit it. I did it. I got the 5S, I think, or the 6. Because
well, it
I
was
traded
nice
in.
talking to you. I hope
Yeah.
you we'll maybe talk to you later.
So after that, I went to, I think one of the best phones I ever saw back in its day. The Moto Z Play, I think is what it was called. The Moto Z Play. It's standby time, and even not standby time, it was just incredible for its day. You could get almost a week out of that phone. I then went to the Samsung Galaxy 9 Pro.
I had a Galaxy 9, but I didn't have the Pro, but I loved it.
I had the Pro. As a matter of fact, I had the Pro until just a couple of years ago, until 2 years ago, actually.
I still have my S9 in a drawer. I only stopped using it every day. I only stopped using mine every day a few weeks ago as a spare.
And then I went. Well, one of the things I did not like about that phone, oh my God, did the microphones back off? That's one thing I still don't like about Samsung phones as to other phones. Their microphones back off, if that makes any sense.
What do you mean by that?
They like loud/bass. They back off to where things get quieter. And Pixel phones, my Nokia phone does not do that. Samsung does now. The Samsung 9 Plus or Pro, whatever it was, I don't remember.
It was the Plus.
Was it the Plus? Okay. It was worse about it than my S22 is. But even my S22 still does it. Backs off.
Are we talking about recording or on phone calls or recording?
When you're doing recording.
How I solved that was by using HiQ MP3 recorder.
I used HiQ, and I still couldn't get mine to quit doing it. Then I went to the Nokia because the S9 Plus all of a sudden was getting no more updates, not even security updates. And I'm like, okay, no, I don't want a phone that's not going to get updates, even security ones. So I got the Nokia X100, which is I call it kind of a mid-range / low budget. It's from T-Mobile. I think T-Mobile is the only place you can get it, actually. $250 phone, but for what it is, it's a big screened phone, and it's really not all that slow. I mean, it is slower, but it's not unusable.
So what made you want to get that instead of, say, a Pixel or another Samsung?
Because they had a deal where if you activated a line, you could get it for free. I wasn't going to pass that up.
El Fribo, that's my language.
But is that your main phone or
no,
that's what I was wondering.
No. Yeah. Then I wanted something a little better. So I then went to a Pixel 5, and I got that one for free. I won't say how or why or whatever, but I got it for free, and I definitely didn't like it for one reason. Probably the same reason y'all didn't like it. The fact that the earpiece was under the glass. No, its microphone had issues too. The reason I then went to the Pixel 6 Pro, and the reason I had done that was we had an issue with lift where I had May on the phone with me so she could hear what was going on. Well, sadly, the microphone on the Pixel 5, she was having a lot of issues hearing with it. And we were like, you know what? No, we got to get a different phone. So that's when I got the Pixel 6 Pro. And then I went to the S22 Ultra, and that's where I am currently. That's what my main Android phone is right now. Looking forward, and I've been trying to look forward. I'm like, okay, what am I going to do for my next phone? And for me, it's such a hard decision between the Pixel and Samsung because there's stuff I love about the Pixel, but there's stuff I love about the Samsung. So it's like, and then there are things I hate about the Samsung. Cough, cough, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, the proximity sensor, because I use it a lot. But then there are things I hate about the Pixel. So it's just, what am I going to do?
We've had one annoyance about the Samsung. Actually, we've had two. We've had the microphones. Let's have the Pixel ones to balance it up a bit.
I tended to have more issues with the agent, the Google thing that we've been talking about on the group. I had more issues with that on the assistant on the Pixel than I do my S22 Ultra. Believe it or not.
Ridiculous.
I know.
Yeah, I can confirm that.
I don't know why. I don't know, but it's like the Pixel phones, it's not as good of a thing as it is, for whatever reason. as it is on the Samsung.
It works great if you're not using TalkBack, but if you're using TalkBack,
yes,
no, it doesn't. It speaks, and the thing about on a Pixel, if it speaks over you, it mutes the mic, so you can't even talk over it. It's not going to hear anything you say if TalkBack is talking.
I will say one of the things I miss on my Samsung, or that I miss on Pixel, that I can't do on the Samsung, and I wish Samsung would do it, is being able to just talk without having to say period, comma, period. On Pixels, you don't have to do that. And I looked at when I would send people messages, especially on Telegram, I sent someone a really long one and it got probably 95% of the punctuation right. I just wish you could do that on a Samsung.
Well, the truth is that there'll always be something that is amiss with every device. And it's just whichever one is willing to put up with. That's the whole idea.
It's choice, isn't it?
One, yeah, exactly. Which one you would rather live with and all of that. But
yeah, I'm always going back and forth between the two.
Yeah.
Like this Jerry mentioned it, the assistant typing. I have the automatic punctuation turned off, but I do love the assistant typing. It just works so much better. It recognizes so many more emojis. You can say clear to redo a sentence. You can say clear all if you just want to start over. You could say next to go to the next field. You could say send to send a message. Just so much more you can do with the assistant typing that you cannot do. And I'm over here trying to use my Samsung phone and I'm typing a message and then I say send and it just adds send into the message.
Oh dear.
Plus you got used to saying send or stop.
Yeah, exactly.
That does sound handy, actually.
I love my assistant typing, to be honest. But, like I said, there's things that one can live with or not live with. But the good news is that we have these choices. Just imagine if you are on Fruitvale that you don't have a choice. You're stuck. So we are blessed to have these different phones, and you can switch between them as you switch between putting on new socks or whatever every day.
And I just speaking of the whole Apple thing, and this is something I always wanted to tell people. I actually started. I had heard that Apple was accessible, but when I went and got my phone, I was like, you know what? I want to be different. I want to be bold. I want to try something different. That's what made me actually go to Android, because I heard it was doable, and I wanted to be one of those people to help others to see that, hey, Android is doable. Yes, you might have to do a little bit of fiddling with it, back in 2011. But once you did that, it was pretty good. And at least it was doable. You didn't, so it gave you a choice. There were just a lot of people who didn't want to see that choice because, Apple back then, let's face it, was a little bit better at the accessibility part. But man, has Android come such a long way since Froyo, because that's what the Sanyo Zayo had. It had Android Froyo.
Well, Jerry, this has been a wonderful Android journey story. And before we bring this to a close, we just want to mention here to you and all of our listeners that anytime you want to come back and just join us as a listener, we have an open door, which we call listener appearance, guest appearance. So anytime you want to come back and join us in an episode, just let us know and you'll be on. But it has been a pleasure having you.
Or if you want to record us any app demos or reviews or things like that, feel free.
I was going to say, I have a one coming up. Warren will be getting the file really soon.
Lovely.
It's not an Android phone. And some people are going to sit there going, wait a minute, I didn't think this was Android. But guess what? It is. And you'll just have to see how. And, it's a brief demo.
It's an Android.
It is an Android under the hood, but they're doing their own little thing with it that you'll get to see. It's interesting, to say the least. So you guys are very welcome. I'm glad I could come on here and, not only tell my story, but, talk about the Smart Vision 3 and RAZ Mobility and whatnot. So I was glad I could educate everybody and also just have fun with you guys.